All right.
Okay, are we ready to go? Okay, so this is our speaker for October 22nd. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Lindsay, who's going to be talking to us about attracting birders to your, or attracting songbirds to your own backyard. And Lindsay grew up in Orlando. She's a graduate of the University of Central Florida and has always had an affinity for animals and nature, but birds are her favorite, like so many of us. She volunteered at the Avian Reconditioning Center in Apopka, Florida, for many years and helped the return of hundreds of injured raptors to the wild with and presented owls, hawks, kites, and eagles at public events. She worked as a manager for the Marriott hotels for a few years and then decided it was time to link her two passions, being an entrepreneur and birds. And she knew she wanted to run a Wild Birds Unlimited franchise, and a year-long search brought her to Gainesville. So the Wild Birds Unlimited store in Gainesville has been serving backyard birding enthusiasts since 2002, and Lindsay has been the owner since 2021. So with support from her parents, Susan and Doug Gilmour. And lucky for us, with the success of the Gainesville store, Lindsay found that many of her customers were driving up from Ocala, and she saw that Marion County would be a great place to open a second location. So the new store is currently under construction at 5400 Southwest College Road, Suite 112, and it's next to the Publix at the Heath Brook Commons. And so with over 350 independently owned franchises across North America, Wild Birds Unlimited encourages owners to carry high quality and responsibly sourced and earth-friendly products. Lindsay loves the support of customers who share her spirit to save the songbirds while making their backyards a beautiful place for nature. And I'm so happy to have Lindsay talking to us about how we can attract songbirds to our own backyards. So thank you, Lindsay. I'm
Thank,
excited.
thank you for having us. So I'm here with my dad, Doug Gilmour, and he is going to talk a little bit about the different types of feeders.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining. So let's dive right in and talk about what we call the 12 elements of a thoughtful bird feeding station. So the first thing you got to have is feeders. And there's multiple kinds of feeders, and we'll go into more details there. And then you got to have a source for water. And it always surprises our customers to find out that when you have water as a source, and it's a regular source that the birds can count on, you'll have birds attracted to your yard that might not necessarily come to your feeders, but they just come for the water. And also, it's a great opportunity to see them interacting in different ways, which can be neat. Having nearby landing areas, perches, and so forth is, of course, is important. And then the feeder locations where they are matters to us and to the birds. And then also, I don't know about you, but I think the squirrels are fun. It's fun to watch them sometimes, but I don't need those rascals getting at my food. As long as they just are getting the food off the ground that the birds drop, I'm fine with that. So we have solutions for that. So let's see what the picture looks like. So as you look at this image, and we keep a copy of this image in our store up on the wall by our bird feeding stations as well. So on this one, you can see the pole system in the center that has that green topped feeder. That's a hopper feeder, and that kind of is the beginning of the process. So it's that good catch-all, all-in-one kind of feeder that can handle just about any kind of food. You can see below it there's a tray feeder, and then probably to me just as important as that is right below there is a baffle to keep the raccoons and squirrels off. Now that in particular in the picture there is a raccoon baffle. You'll notice how much bigger it is than the baffle that's off to the right that's kind of cone shaped. That one is a squirrel baffle. And that'll certainly keep the squirrels off it, but it will not necessarily keep the raccoons off it. Raccoons, of course, are bigger and can climb around it. I've got a raccoon baffle on the pole system in my backyard, and it's always fun. Every single day, at least 2 or 3 times, one squirrel or two or three will climb up the pole and go up underneath the baffle and look around and always trying to figure out some way to get up there, but of course they can't. Lindsay has a great saying when customers come into the store and they say, "Those squirrels are so smart, they keep getting at my food." And Lindsay's answer is, "They're not smart, they're persistent. Because if they were smart, they wouldn't run in front of my car." So as you look at some of the other options that we have here, they kind of go together though. You can see we've got the water source at the bottom, and Lindsay's going to go into more detail there. And then we've got multiple kinds of feeders. And so one of the questions we often get is, well, what kind of feeder is best for me? And of course, the answer is it depends. It depends on what kind of birds you're trying to attract, what kind of feed you want to put out, what your situation is. Is it something that you'd kind of like to be able to put up and not have to worry about for a week, or you're willing to keep a close eye on it? In fact, one of the things that people need to remember about nectar feeders, hummingbird feeders, so the red topped one you see on the center pole that's off to the left a little bit, is that nectar feeders here in Florida, it's especially important during the heat of the summer, which is the peak time for hummingbirds, that we keep that nectar fresh. Because the danger with nectar that's not fresh is that it can get bacteria in the nectar, and the birds can't necessarily sense it. It can actually make them sick, and it might still look okay, but it can actually get the birds sick. So we certainly want to keep a watch on that. And that's why our rule of thumb is to change out the nectar, especially in the heat of the summer, every 4 days or so, just to keep it fresh. So you can see another thing that's interesting up at the top is that the kind of dotted line that goes up to that branch. It's certainly great to have branches and perches nearby for the birds to kind of gather on, and they hop down near the feeder, and they're kind of looking around to make sure the coast is clear and everything's okay before they hop onto the feeder. And that's why it's nice to have branches handy nearby. Of course, if you don't have a natural branch like that tree that's up above, you can put your own branches up, whether they're metal branches or natural ones. In fact, on my pole system, I have what you see over to the left-hand side. We have a really neat piece that attaches to the pole system, and it has 3 openings on it, so that I have 3 branches going up in different directions from my pole system. And then I just went out and got some branches and put them in there. And the birds always, well, not always, the chickadees will often come right up to the feeder, but a lot of the other birds, they'll start by they're flying over to a tree that's on the edge of my property, but then they'll hop down to the branches, and then finally, when they're sure the coast is clear, they'll hop up onto that feeder and enjoy themselves. And of course, oftentimes hop back up to the safety of the tree once they've grabbed their little treat. So what are some of the options that we have for feeders? And you've probably seen lots of different kinds. And what you'll find in our store, and what we recommend, is that you have ones that are going to be right for the circumstance, but also right for the birds. You want to make sure they don't have any sharp edges or corners. Really important that it's easy to clean. And when I talk more about when we talk more about the hummingbird feeder, I'll talk about some details there. As I mentioned, you want to keep it clean by cleaning it every 4 days or so. So you want one that's easy to clean because you want to take the hassle out of it. One of the things that we try very hard to do at our store is to make sure that the joy of bird feeding is easy, and that you don't have any hassles, that you don't have to worry about a squirrel or a raccoon taking all your food every day, and that you can just fill the feeders, sit back and enjoy what we say, having a symphony in your backyard, and we certainly have that at our house. You want to make sure they're sturdy, and that they're in good repair, so that they do stay in good shape. And of course, you want them to be easy to fill. And that's something that I think the great example that I'll give you on our hummingbird feeder of each of those items. But of course, there's many different designs, and we can talk about that in detail. So the hopper feeder is often the one that people call their core feeder. because you can put just about any kind of seed in it. It's just a hopper. You can see on this example, the one side of the green roof, it just flips up, and so you just pour the seed in there, and the birds are eating, and it's all set. Now, with this particular feeder, and you'll find this true in most of our feeders, they're going to be friendly to the environment as much as possible. Yes, it's made out of plastic. It's made out of recycled plastic. It's a solid item, and you'll notice the screws on it. The hinge at the top is made of aluminum, and all the screws and all the hardware that you'll find on any one of the ones in our store are made of stainless steel, so that you never have to worry about them rusting, and they should last a good long time, if not forever. Not long ago, a customer came into the store with the red-topped hopper feeder. It was a smaller version, but very similar design to the one you're looking at in the picture here. And he brought it in because it was broken. And I was like, oh, that's surprising. These things should really never break unless a bear gets a hold of it or something. And I started to apologize, and he said, oh, no, because I assumed it was a brand new feeder because it looked brand new. And he said, no, it's just the wire hanger that clips onto the side so I can hang it from my pole system. The wire broke on it. And I was like, okay. And because to me, it clearly looked like a brand new feeder. And he said, oh, and by the way, it's 13 years old.
Wow.
It still looked new. And it's pretty easy to keep these clean. Periodically, you should wipe them down with either a very light bleach mixture, like just 1 to 10 of bleach, or my preference personally is to use vinegar because it's a natural product. And so I'll use a vinegar mixture periodically, and just after it's empty and before I fill it up again, I'll wipe down all the surfaces with that to make sure it's clean again, let it dry in the sun, and then fill it up again to keep the birds happy. Tray feeders are really a great catch-all, because the great thing about great tray feeders is everybody can come to it. Now, so the good part about that is everybody can come to it. The bad part about that is everybody can come to it. And of course, that I can tell you that at the top of my pole system, I have the feeder that you see on the bottom here, and it's a good sized tray feeder with, of course, a top on it. And yes, the crows can get to it too. So the crows periodically will come, and of course they're big birds with big appetites. But it's kind of funny. We actually have a solution for that too. And part of bird feeding 101 is learning how to not scare certain birds away, but let's say just discourage them. As you guys are probably all well aware, crows are very smart. They're among the crows and ravens are among the smartest birds in the animal kingdom, and you can use that against them. Something that we sell is crow decoys, and so it's just a fake crow. And what you can do is you take that fake crow and you just toss it on the ground underneath your feeder, upside down, sideways, as long as it's not standing upright. What will happen is the crows will see that decoy and assume that there's something wrong with that crow, and therefore we shouldn't be hanging out here, because if there's something here that's making our buddy sick or dead, we probably don't want to be here. And it will discourage them and tend to not hang around your feeder so much. So you can actually use that little trick to keep the crows off your feeder. But since it's a tray feeder, you can put anything you want in it, and it's just a very handy option. You can put a mixture of seeds in it. Something that I did recently when the orioles started showing up was, instead of just having an oriole feeder, a nectar feeder, which we'll talk about in a minute, I just took a cup of jelly and put it inside my tray feeder, so that it had a little something for everybody. But the thing about that is you want to make sure your jelly is under cover, so when it rains, it doesn't get full of water. Suet feeders are a classic, of course. More commonly used up north probably, but we have plenty of customers who come in and buy cases of suet because in particular their woodpeckers just love the suet. One of the neat things you want to keep in mind about suet feeders is, because woodpeckers are the ones that tend to come to it the most, you want to have what we call a tail prop on it. And on the top one here that has the red-bellied woodpecker on it, you'll notice it's got that piece of plastic sticking down on it. because as you all know, woodpeckers eat vertically. So that they cling to the side of the tree and they use those very strong tail feathers to hold their head up normally while they peck away at the bark to get the insects underneath it. But in this case, it works great to hold so they can hold on there and peck away at the suet. So you always want to have a suet feeder that has something below it that they can prop their tail against. Although interestingly, you'll also find that where there's a will, there's a way. Um, I've had one of our squirrel-proof feeders that we'll talk about in a minute that, of course, does not have a tail prop on it. And you probably know that red-bellied woodpeckers also love peanuts. So the red belly would come to my squirrel eliminator feeder, which does not have a tail prop on it, and he would just curl his tail all the way upside down on the bottom of the feeder so that he could reach up and over and grab himself a peanut before he flew away. Another example of suet feeders is the one that you see below that has the scarlet tanager?
Scarlet.
Yeah, scarlet tanager. I was thinking summer tanager, but that's the
That's
scarlet tanager. Has a scarlet tanager on it, and you'll notice that that's just kind of like a little house that's made of wood. It's got a little perch on it, and then it's just got stuff suet all over it. It's a particular kind of suet that we call bark butter. It was invented by Jim Carpenter, who was the founder of Wild Birds Unlimited, and is still the CEO of the company. And originally, he invented this stuff. It's basically it's like a thick cookie dough, but it's a suet. And he invented it because he was trying to attract brown creepers to his backyard. And he experimented for years coming up with different ideas until he finally stuck on one that did attract brown creepers and also didn't melt away in the sun, because that's half the trick, especially here in Florida. Since he came out with bark butter, we have found over 150 species of birds that enjoy bark butter. And there's plenty of them here in Florida that enjoy bark butter. I know that at my house, in particular in the spring, the chickadees love it when they're feeding the babies because it has lots of fat and extra protein and also has that calcium in it. And Lindsay, at your house, who goes for the bark butter more at your house?
At the moment, I have warblers, orioles, Carolina wrens, chickadees. I've seen a cardinal on there too.
Wow. So what's interesting is that Lindsay and I only live about 2 miles from each other, and in similar suburban environment. Yet she gets a totally different kind of bird and birds that come to her different feeders than I do. Because one of the things that Lindsay taught me a long time ago when she first started volunteering at the Avian Reconditioning Center with the raptors is that, like humans, each bird has a different personality. And as Lindsay got to know the different birds at the Raptor Center, it was pretty interesting hearing her come home with tales of, well, this eagle is he just doesn't like anybody else, but he likes me. And then this other eagle, well, he just has a mind of his own. He does not want me handling him. So, like us, birds can have different personalities or different preferences. And also keep in mind that just because you have a bird coming to one kind of food, that's all he's looking for. I have a yellow-throated warbler that every day shows up to my feeder. He goes to the bark butter first, then he hops down and has a couple of mealworms, and then he flies back and goes for a couple of seeds, and finally generally flies off with one whole peanut. And I'm not sure what he does with it because there's no way he can swallow it. But he just hops around happily to all the different feeders in my backyard. Tube feeders are handy because they naturally select or deselect certain birds from coming to your food, and they especially can be favorites for finches. Now, this is a standard tube feeder, and you see the openings on it have a pretty good size. So this one it looks like it's mostly sunflower seed that's in that feeder. But we also sell finch feeders that have a smaller opening, and so the finch blend that we sell has much smaller little bits of food in it and a smaller opening. The neat thing also about tube feeders is that, for example, if mourning doves annoy you, because they can be big and just camp out on your feeder and eat a lot of food too, mourning doves generally can't handle sitting at that little perch on this feeder. And like all feeders, you want something that's easy to clean. You'll notice at the very bottom of this one that there's a little tab that sticks out on the very bottom of it. And there's one on each side that's spring loaded, so you can pop the bottom off it and you can disassemble it to clean it out. And it makes it really easy to clean. Of course, the top comes off for filling it. Nectar feeders. And this is for those of you who have gotten the standard jar style of nectar feeder, that you fill up the jar and then you turn it upside down and then you put it and you put it on, you screw it on to the perches, the red part that the hummingbirds come to. This one's a totally different design, and the reason for it is threefold. Number one, it's easy to clean. All you do is you pop that top red top off it, and the whole thing is open for you to clean it. Very simple to clean. It's easy to see the hummingbirds no matter where they are on the feeder. If you think about those ones that have the jar that stick on top of it, half the time the hummingbirds are on the opposite side. You don't see them. So that's a neat thing about this one. And then the other thing I love about this one is that you will find that ants will find their way up to your hummingbird feeder because they like nectar too. And this one, you can't quite see it from this angle, but on the inside of it is a moat that you just put a little bit of water in, and so the ants can't get to it. So it's a simple little feeder, but it's very effective and a favorite of mine, and certainly a favorite of my hummingbirds. In fact, the hummingbird picture that was on the very opening slide, I took that one in my backyard. Talking more about nectar feeders, the Baltimore Orioles are. I actually grew up in just outside Baltimore, so they've always been a favorite of mine. And when the male Orioles showed up at they usually show up around October 1st in our yard, and it always makes my day because they're such really, especially the males, are vibrant and pretty birds. And I wish I had known when I was a kid that they don't eat birdseed, because we had Baltimore Orioles in our area, but we didn't know how to track them because back then all you did was you put out birdseed and you hoped for the best. Little did I know at the time that all you got to do is put out some jelly, and they love the jelly. And so what I've got is a feeder similar to this in my backyard. And on one side of it, you'll notice the one on top, it has a cup on either side of it. On one side, I put jelly. On the other side, I put mealworms, dried mealworms. And I've got more female Orioles than male Orioles right now. I think there's just the one male Oriole that's coming to my feeder, and they come every day, and I love seeing them. Now you'll notice in this one we have in the picture that we have orange slices, orange halves in it, and here in Florida, it's been my personal experience. Now other people it works for them, so I don't want to say don't do this or it won't work, but I can tell you for me and also for Lindsay, she says her too. Putting out orange slices just didn't work for me because the Orioles never came to them quickly enough for them to not turn green before they got a chance to eat it. So so I just stick with the grape jelly, and that seems to bring them in and keep them happy. Treat feeders, and there's many different kinds. This one, the one up with the bluebird, of course, has mealworms sitting in it. The one on the left is a cool little one that has 3 different little cups that you can put different things in, and you see that, and I love the little wraparound perch that so a couple of different birds can enjoy and hop before they hop down to the cup, and then they hop off and finish and peck away at it, and then they fly back away. So I love those little treat feeders. Cylinder feeders. Now on these, I selected the pictures that have just fun pictures on it because I love these guys. We sell a lot of these, of course, at the holidays because they make wonderful gifts. Of course, you can put a standard cylinder on it. That's boring, but isn't it more fun to have a little? I think, is that Hoot the Owl, the one on the bottom, or is that
one is
Oliver?
Oliver. He's new.
That's Oliver the Owl. And it's always fun to watch them and then feel bad when finally one of the woodpeckers pecks away the eye on the snowman. And you're like, oh my gosh, he's a cyclops.
But those guys are really great for if you're going out of town for a while and you aren't going to be able to fill your bird feeders. The cylinders are a great way to keep food out that's going to last you a little bit longer and keep the birds coming back while you're out of town.
And of course, you tend to get a little more opportunity to look at them because they have to work a little harder to separate a seed versus just grabbing one and flying away with it.
Mm.
Squirrel-proof feeders. So these, I think for most of our customers, this is their core feeder. The neat thing about them is you can pretty much put them anywhere. These are we carry three different feeders that are squirrel proof. And there's a lot of great features about them. All three of them work on a spring-loaded mechanism. So the one on the left-hand side, for example, is the squirrel eliminator, and you can see that one has three little finches on it, and the perch, the ring that goes around the bottom of it, it holds up their weight. But as soon as a squirrel tries hopping on it, that ring goes down and it closes off the access to the food. It's a brilliant design. Inside, at the very top of the tube, is a plus or minus notch that you can twist to make the spring loading of it stronger or lighter, so that if you want to have, for example, blue jays you don't mind, or mourning doves sitting on your feeder, you can make it so that it takes more weight for the spring to close, so that they can enjoy it. Or you can make it lighter so that the blue jays and mourning doves won't be able to get to the food. The other cool thing about these is you see exactly how much food is in them, and depending on how busy you are in your backyard, this can keep things going for quite a few days as well. The other neat thing about both of these feeders is they are tough where it matters. So, for example, let's talk more about the eliminator, the one on the left. The top of it is made of metal, and the openings where the portals where the food comes out are made of metal. And the one actually that Lindsay has in her backyard, I bought it about 12 or 13 years
Yeah.
ago now, and it still works great. Every part of it still works great. The only thing wrong with it, if you will, is that around each of those portals, around all those rings, this paint is all scraped away, because when the squirrels hop on the ring and it closes, they know the food is in there, so they try chewing away at it, and they've scratched off the paint, but of course the metal holds up, so that doesn't matter. And then the one on the left-hand side, we call the fundamental. Same concept. The whole cage goes down. It's spring-loaded so that the squirrels can't get to it. One of the questions that we often get at our store is, so I've seen that one on TV and I've seen videos of it called the Yankee Flipper, and why don't you carry that one? And there's a couple reasons we don't carry it. It certainly makes for funny videos when the squirrel hops on it and the perch ring starts spinning around until they finally fly off. But to me, it's kind of mean. And also, once the battery dies in it, and it will, then the squirrel can get to the food.
The battery only lasts about 48 hours too.
Wow.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so it's a lot of effort to have to bring it in, charge it, then put it back out, and assume that maybe you didn't go through very much bird seed, and then it's all gone because the squirrels eat it.
But if you're not going to have everything protected behind a baffle, then squirrel-proof feeders are certainly the way to go. And I think this might be the last one that I have is about feeders, window feeders for folks that have apartments, or they just want something that comes up really close. It certainly is amazing to have a window feeder for, especially to me, hummingbirds. To get a close look at the iridescence on a ruby-throated hummingbird is just amazing. And I find that if I sit still, they'll come right up to the window and sit there and feed, and you can get a really good close-up look at them. And for people that don't have a big lawn or whatever, these also make great options for them as well. So
the only thing with the window feeders is if you have a seed window feeder, you're definitely going to want some sort of squirrel resistant bird food in there.
And you're going to talk about that when you talk about birdseed, right? Okay. All right. The last thing I want to share with you about feeders is where you place them is important. Now, you'll notice on this chart, it says window strike zone. And that's something we really need to be cognizant of. As bird lovers, we certainly enjoy looking at the birds and making them happy with the treats that we put out for them and having the joy of bird feeding in our backyard. But it certainly feels terrible if one of them gets scared by a hawk or something, because by the way, that is what they do. Hawks will come swooping by on purpose to startle the birds, hoping that they'll fly into a window, or sometimes just by accident, they'll fly into a window by themselves. And we do have some solutions for that in the store that we can talk more about another time. But it's the distance from the window is also part of the challenge. If it's closer than 3 feet, the birds don't fly into it because they're right next to it already. But if it's between 3 and 10 feet, that's what we call the window strike zone. So if you're going to put a pole system out on your backyard, you want it to be more than 10 feet away. And then we talk about the squirrel proof zone. Squirrels, for those of you who've lived up north, you know that the gray squirrels down here are smaller than they are up north. But so this says 10 feet, really probably 8 feet from anything that they can launch themselves off of horizontally is how far is the distance you need to be away from that bush or your house or the fence or a tree nearby or a flower pot, yeah, whatever it might be. So you can see in this example, they can jump across, and even if you have a baffle on your pole, if they jump over the baffle, then all bets are off. So 8 to 10 feet is how far you want it to be away from anything that they can launch off of. And then you'll see that one arrow that says 4 feet. The top of your baffle should be at least 4 feet up, because squirrels and raccoons can jump vertically up to, but not any higher than 4 feet. So as long as it's the top of it is 4 feet up, then that'll keep squirrels and raccoons off your feeders as well. But the great thing is that once you have it higher than 4 feet and you've got a pole system, you can do whatever you want. In my backyard right now, above my baffle, I have 6 feeders on my pole system. We actually have a customer who, because the pole systems, they're 8 feet tall, but of course you drive them about 18 inches into the ground, so they're nice and steady. And we have stabilizers to hold them straight up as well. But you can add extra poles to make them taller as well. Of course, the challenge is you go taller, then it's harder to fill them. But we do have a customer who keeps a ladder handy, and he doesn't mind it. He has 2 pole systems. Each pole system has 12 feeders on it. So he's got 24 feeders on 2 pole systems in his backyard, and the birds sure love him for it. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay, who's going to talk about some of the seeds and options that we have that you want to look at to feed the birds.
So we have about 6 different blends of seeds that we carry, and these blends are made by Wild Birds Unlimited specifically, and they all have a little bit something different in them. But if you notice, the base seed on just about all of our blends is premium oil sunflower. And so sunflower is basically the staple, and the premium oil is the highest grade of sunflower that we can get. A lot of our customers, you can just see the difference in quality of our sunflower chips and all of our seed compared to Ace Hardware or Walmart. It is just fresh. We also rotate our seed weekly, and making sure that we give our customers the highest and our birds the highest quality bird seed possible. So as you can see, the Supreme blend in the middle is kind of the base blend. So it's going to have your premium oil sunflower. It has striped sunflower, safflower, and sunflower chips are premium oils without the shell on them. And so if we take that blend and take all of the shells off of it, that would be our no mess blend. The no mess blend also has peanuts and chopped tree nuts in it, which is great. The no mess blend is fantastic. It is a little bit more expensive, but that being said, you're not paying for any of the weight of the shell like you are in all of the other blends. So you're not wasting money on something the birds aren't going to eat. Everything in that bag, the birds will enjoy. It also helps if your pole system is over grass. You won't have the discarded shells killing your grass underneath your bird feeders, which is great. The Tree Nutty blend is a bit chunkier. It has lots and lots and lots of different types of tree nuts, peanuts, sunflower chips, bark butter bits, which is a type of suet. It has added calcium, which coats some of the bark butter bits and the raisins. on it as well. So it's a great all-around blend to help attract a very wide variety of birds. The choice blend at the far left in the red bag is definitely the most popular at our store. It has the base of the sunflower chips, and most importantly, it has peanuts. I found a lot of my birds uh, like the peanuts best out of any of the seed blends. And so that's definitely why it's one of the more popular ones. It's very simple, but it fits in every single one of our feeders. It doesn't clog. It doesn't have fruit in it. Sometimes the fruit in some of our blends can clog the feeders. So it just depends on what type of feeder you have to put the right type of seed in it to have the best variety of birds and to not have to over clean your feeders as well, which is great. The Florida blend is very similar to the choice, but it has a bunch of extra stuff in it. It has cranberries, cherries, and lots of other different ingredients that help bring in a wider variety of birds as well. The two bags that you see that are in the green probably bring in the widest variety of birds. But that being said, it doesn't always fit in every type of feeder that you have. The deluxe blend is going to be coming in very popular coming up soon. It has the millet in it, which is good for mourning doves, chipping sparrows, and the bunting. So everybody is trying to get painted and indigo buntings coming to their feeder. Having the millet in your feeders is how you're going to bring them in. So this just gives a little bit more information about what types of seeds each type of bird is looking for. As you can see up here, there's different types of birds at the top, and on the left-hand side is the straight seed or nectar fruit that the bird is interested in. The Niger seed, we typically don't carry straight in our store anymore. Niger is a type of thistle that comes from India, and recently they have changed the radiation laws of importing Niger, which also in turn makes the seeds not as nutritious. So our birds are, especially the goldfinches, which is what most people put the Niger out to try and attract, that we're finding goldfinches are more interested in sunflower chips now. So we do still carry Niger, and it's in a special blend of seed. It's called our Finch blend, and the Finch blend has Niger and sunflower chips in it. And then we can talk about the different common backyard birds that we're going to see here in Florida. These guys are pretty common. I'm sure everyone's seen your cardinals and your tufted mice at your feeder. And here at the bottom, you can see graphs. These graphs are from eBird. It's a fantastic website, and it actually tracks what is coming to our area. It goes down by state and zip code and county. It's very accurate. So these are going to be what's coming to Marion County. As you can see, the cardinals are pretty frequent year-round, so are the titmice over here. And so we have the downy woodpeckers and the red-bellied woodpeckers. I love these little guys. The downy woodpeckers are probably going to be one of the more common woodpeckers you're seeing. You can see there's two pictures up here. The one on the left with a little bit of red on the back of his head, that's the male. And then to the right of him is this female who does not have the red. And you can see they're pretty common throughout the year. More common coming to feeders this time of year in the winter. And here the frequency is on the left-hand side going up versus the month on the bottom. Carolina chickadees and eastern bluebirds are very common in our area as well. You can see here at the bottom during the winter months is when people are seeing them more frequently on their feeders because there's a less natural food source, so they're coming to feeders more regularly and we're seeing them a little bit longer. On the other hand, you can see the bluebirds. You are seeing them more in the springtime when they're feeding their babies. They like to come and get mealworms, which is what bluebirds are attracted to, stuff that have bugs, calcium, and primarily mealworms. They really like the bark butter too. Bark butter is great for mama birds with all the added fat and calcium that helps produce eggs and keeps her bones safe for her too. And we see the hummingbird. So this is a good example of the seasonality of some of our bird species. You can see on the ruby-throated hummingbird, they come in early March and they are pretty much gone by early October. That doesn't mean that they're completely gone. We are far enough south that sometimes, occasionally, we do get ruby-throated hummingbirds that will winter if they have a stable food source like a feeder. So you can be lucky and have a overwintering one, but that being said, they are most common in the early spring and summer. This, like the woodpeckers, you can see the male versus the female version. Carolina wrens are the opera singers. I love my Carolina wrens. They are here constantly, and they are just kooky little birds. I have a Carolina wren that often comes into my screened-in porch if I leave the door open for my dogs. I'm pretty sure she does it on purpose at this point. And we are getting into more seasonal birds. Here we have our chipping sparrow. I'm very excited for the chipping sparrows. They are fantastic little birds that work so well together. I love seeing them. They're so nice together, and they come in flocks of 40 plus to some sites. And like the indigo buntings, they come for millet. So millet is coming up this time of year. I have had reports of goldfinches in the area already, and goldfinches, like
Oh,
I said
wow.
earlier, they are coming towards chips and the Niger, but I highly recommend having sunflower chips. Your palm warblers and pine warblers and all of the warblers are coming into the area now as well. You can see the pretty much the dead zone in the middle of summer, and now we're getting into the October, and it is spiking here. I have my warblers coming mostly to the bark butter, but sometimes they'll come for a mealworm as well. And we have not just palm warblers, lots and lots of different types of warblers this time of year that come visit us. Another fun thing to do with your yard is to certify your habitat for wildlife. And you can get this beautiful sign after you do your checklist, and they will send it to you. It's a fun activity to do, but some of the things that they do require is creating multiple food sources. That doesn't just mean creating a bird feeding station. You can have native plants that produce berries, or having nectar flowers for hummingbirds. That's another great food source. But it also is great to have a couple different bird feeding stations. Having different seeds and fruit can attract a much wider variety of birds coming to your backyard. And like we were talking about in the earlier presentation, water is incredibly important, whether that's like a pond that's in your backyard, or if you're not fortunate enough to be near a water source like me. I have a variety of different bird baths. What you're looking for in a bird bath is a very easy slope from the rim to the middle, no more than 3 inches deep. And the sides of your bird bath, you're going to want them a little bit more rough. If you already have a bird bath that is maybe smooth like glass, putting some rocks in the middle can really help encourage other wildlife birds, mostly to come and use your bird bath. Having a couple different bird baths is great. Different levels of them can attract different birds as well. And most importantly is keeping your water fresh. I know in my experience, when I freshen my water and I clean my bird bath, I can hear the birds in the trees watching me, waiting for me to walk away so they can get to the water and take a bath in the fresh water. Sometimes they form little lines and wait for their turn to take a bath in the fresh water. So fresh water is very important. Cover. Birds need cover for times of rest, to socialize, and to nest in. Having some sort of cover like bushes, trees, in your yard because it can be very helpful. That being said, you don't want your cover bushes or anything low to the ground too close to your feeders. That if you have feral cats in the area, feral cats will sit near the bird feeder and wait for the birds to unsuspectedly get eaten. But having cover is very important for all sorts of variety of wildlife in the area.
And that's our presentation. As we mentioned at the very beginning, our new Ocala store is going to be at Heath Brook Commons. We had the new flooring installed today. In fact, I got back just in time for this presentation from the store, and all of our display units and our cash register and everything were delivered today. So we're getting very excited. We're getting closer and closer. We're targeting November the 12th. We'll see if it works out that way. There's licensing and permits and so forth we still have to get, but we're on pace and we're very excited to bring Wild Birds Unlimited to Marion County and Ocala. And that's all we have for today. We're very happy to answer any questions you might have.
It's very exciting, you guys. We're excited to have you here. And if any of we want to come to your store when you open, and I'm sure that you can tell us what we can use for our various yards. If we tell you kind of what we've got going on, can you help us like create a plan for birds and attracting birds?
Absolutely. And a good tip, if you want to do a little bit of feederscaping and setting up your yards for what type of different pole systems or bird feeders, taking a picture of your yard and bringing it in will really help us and the staff understand like your backyard and give you the best tips to have you have a successful bird feeding experience.
Oh, I see somebody just commented
Oh,
you had two chipping sparrows. Wow, that's very exciting.
Oh.
You're early on their agenda. That's great.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any other questions. I think you can put it in your chat or you can unmute yourself. I think. Awesome. Well, does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Do you guys sell books at your stores? I've never been to a Wild Birds Unlimited.
Yes, we do have a variety of educational books, ID books, and I have kids books too that are nature related as well.
Wendy asked, are we going to get a copy of the presentation? We are happy to. There's certainly nothing secret or anything about that in this presentation. We're happy to share it with you. We'll get it to Liz if that's okay, and then you can distribute it from there.
And actually, we're recording it, so if it's okay, we'll put it up on our YouTube channel if that's okay with you guys.
Sure, by all means.
Awesome. Okay, we will do that. Looking so excited. We would like to create a field trip when you guys are open and ready for us. We will get our group out there to come and visit.
That would be great. We'd love to have you.
All right. Thank you so much, Doug and Lindsay. It was great to meet you. And Alex, I'll let you close the recording. And yeah, I think we're good.